Welcome, everyone. Imagine a film so haunting, so deeply entrenched in horror lore that its very existence is legendary. London After Midnight, a long lost horror classic that seems destined to haunt film history forever until now. Today, we're diving into the shadows with the visionary behind its resurrection. Dirk Manning has brought this tale back to life, not on the silver screen, but on the pages of a graphic novel. So, welcome, Dirk, and with me, Smurf. Smurf has got all the lore, all the knowledge. He's been ready for this interview. So, I'll turn it over to Smurf right now.
Dirk the Daring, thank you for joining us. This is exciting because this is like one of those, this reads like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, or the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or the Quest for the Grail. Because let's face it, here's the history. This is a silent film made in 1927, December 1927. And due to a fire that happened in 1965 in the MGM Film Vault, the last existing copy is said to be destroyed. Now, if you watched our show last week, you realized that you guys somehow got the same script to do this Kickstarter for After Midnight, which is originally titled The Hypnotist. And that was kind of the working title back in 1927. This film is classic. It's right up there with, of course, Nosferatu, Metropolis, which happens at the same time, which is an amazing Kickstarter for science fiction. So this is the groundwork for basically all of pop culture. So the first question that is just, Dirk, how did you do this? Because, I mean, is this has something to do with it going into public domain?
You are absolutely, positively correct. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool horror fan, right? And this is one of those things where I, too, for seemingly all my life, have been waiting for a version of this film to pop up somewhere. My author photo is, you could probably see, pretty inspired by Lon Chaney, right? I'm going into my 22nd year as a published author. I mainly do creator-owned horror stuff, right? I'm a huge horror fan. I'm a huge comic fan. But sometimes I will work with other celebrities, for lack of a better word, to help them bring comics to life. And one of those subject matters was the rap rock band Twisted out of Detroit. Their manager, George Valakis, he goes, "Hey, Dirk, would you be interested in working with the Chaney estate on maybe bringing some of their stuff to comic book form?" And I'm like, one, how do you know? Yeah, like, how do you know the Cheneys? And it ends up he knows him because George is a big Wolfman fan, and there's a whole other story there. Right. I'm like, yeah, I'll have that discussion. I'm introduced and I meet Ron Chaney, and he's a real good guy, super good dude. And as we were talking about some different options, he happened to just mention London After Midnight. And of course, it was like the needle dragging off the record. Like, I'm like, wait a minute.
Hold up.
You have the rights that we could do London After Midnight, and you have the script? And I'm like, this is London After Midnight. This is a legendary thing. How would you feel if we started with this? And he's like, do you think there'd be interest? And I'm like,
apparently so.
Yes.
I'm sure your inner dialogue is just be cool, just
So he goes, okay. And then he gave me the script, and I'm holding it. I'm like, I don't work myself up too much on this at this point to this degree, but it was like,
don't screw this up.
This is going to go really good or really bad. There's nothing in between.
There's such a weight to this property, right? This movie is very much a Lon Chaney makeup special effects vehicle. And he plays multiple characters in the film. So as I'm reading this, I'm like, okay, we have to be able to capture this in the actual script itself, but still let it read like a graphic novel, but still have it honor the original story.
That must have been challenging, like just trying to figure out how to translate all that into a comic.
Well, yeah, right. And there's even more subterfuge with costumes and things like that in the whole story as well, without giving things away. Again, in the film, right, you get that reveal, and one of the things when I was talking to Joshua Ross, who ultimately became the illustrator on this, but I came to him and I said, this is going to be a different type of thing because we have to make it obvious but not overly obvious that these characters are all this person. And it's one thing to do that in a film where then, of course, you take out the teeth, or you take out the eye contacts or whatever. But how do you do it on a comic book page in a way that allows you to honor the medium of the comic book and but also the intention of the film, right? It's two very different ways of storytelling. And I joke around, again, go make the right or wrong. Movies move. Comic strips, comic books, you're telling a story in a series of still images, and in the gutters, and this goes back to Scott McCloud, right? Understanding Comics 101, you create the illusion of movement between the panels.
Right.
But the end of the story and the screenplay, it's very involved. There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving people, and all this stuff going on. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, okay, how can I honor this and keep this as it is, but still make it work on the page? So to your point, it was a very interesting challenge, but it was a very creative, fulfilling one. And I'm exceptionally excited about the results. And again, I cannot say enough about Joshua Ross, as well as our color artist, Colin Johnson, who's coloring it in black and white to look like an old black and white film. And again, so creatively, it was an interesting challenge for me. But also, as you both said, we're bringing it back. We're resurrecting it. And we're resurrecting it through this Kickstarter, which is at londonaftermidnightcomic.com, with a Kickstarter exclusive leather-bound hardcover edition of the book, which you'll only be able to get through the Kickstarter. I know there's people out there that after this Kickstarter ends, they're going to find out there's a leather-bound hardcover edition of this book that was made print to order for this campaign. This is the only way to get the Kickstarter exclusive leather-bound hardcover, as well as any of the stretch goals we unlock through the campaign. And we're also offering like Kickstarter exclusive T-shirts. We're doing a commemorative coin. We have a gimme everything level. Like for $100 with free US shipping, you get the PDF, the digital version, the hardcover, the trade paperback, the shirt, and the coin for like $100 in a bundle. It's just ridiculous.
Jumping into the Kickstarter thing, like you guys are absolutely crushing it. You had a goal of 10,000 that you hit in like the first 4 days.
Yep.
My question is like, what really like made you decide that Kickstarter was the avenue to go with this? You're working with the Cheney estate, you're working with SourcePoint, and to throw Kickstarter into the mix as well, like that's a lot of different plates to juggle. So
I've done over $500,000 on Kickstarter to date in pre-sales, and I've done that by doing almost exclusively original creator-owned graphic novels, mainly in the horror genre, being one of the people that kind of helped pioneer the approach that's kind of baked into Kickstarter now about offering Kickstarter people an exclusive version of the thing.
The thing that I want to point out that I really love, Dirk, though, is that you've this is your 15th campaign, but you have backed 413 other campaigns on Kickstarter. We talk about this every week on our show, how much credibility it gives to a creator to back other people and to support the community. I just wanted to point that out and how much I loved seeing that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I love supporting Kickstarters, right? I know what it's like to be a creator, when you're getting started. Again, February will be my 22nd year as a published creator. And I've done that never working for Marvel, never working for DC. So I get it. I get how this works. And I get the importance of being out there and supporting people who are in this grind and want to do this work. And quite frankly, I like it because oftentimes, that's where I find some of the best stuff, right? There's people out there who are hustling and doing it themselves, and you get a very pure vision of what they want. As you said, at the end of the day, Matt, I like what you said, it's a community. And we need to pay it forward into our community, and we need to help support each other. And that's the other reason that I really like doing Kickstarters. I now have a wonderful relationship working with SourcePoint Press, who pretty much at this point kind of lets me, they know that Dirk's going to
Here's
Dirk.
The
right?
keys, lock up on your way out.
Yeah, exactly. you know what you're doing, man. Just do your thing. It's fine, And I love working with SourcePoint because of the fact, like you said, Smurf, it's like, here's the keys, lock up when you're done. Just go.
I mean, Josh is great that way. Josh is so good, and he's such a talented creative over there at SourcePoint. And I love the crew. And the Winchester story that they did last year was absolutely
Winchester Mystery House.
Bonkers, right? So, I mean, if anyone has a finger on the pulse, it's SourcePoint, it's Josh. They know what they're doing. And it always seems like a natural fit for you guys to get in there.
literally right next to me, it's like, here's a bunch of like the classic pulp books that Josh Werner has done and stuff.
Yep.
He does that stuff as a hobby. He remasters old pulp comics and stuff like that and restores them. Josh Werner, in my opinion, is legitimately one of the unsung heroes of the comic industry. To me, it's just he's an underground guy, right? And he kind of likes living there. And to me, it's like, the biggest spotlight needs to be shined on you as well, and continue to shine on SourcePoint as they restructure and grow back onto the scene and things like that. Sometimes people don't realize the importance of the match between the artist and the colorist.
So when you guys were putting together like the color palette and everything for After Midnight, how difficult was it to come up with this idea? Because I mean, it's one thing to start with a black background and do white and reds and all of that, like Batman animated style. But I mean, you're actually coloring in all of this within the grays and the blues and all of that. That had to be an interesting choice and challenge.
I've been working with a gentleman named Colin Johnson. Colin is amazing, and he's a chameleon. And I mean that as a colorist, I think is the highest compliment. He's absolutely fantastic. He can do anything. And when I talked about what I wanted to do with this, he got right. He hooked right into it and just developed this perfect black and white palette that also works extremely well on Joshua Ross's line art. Because that's the thing. Sometimes people don't realize the importance of the match between the artist and the colorist. I've seen a mismatched colorist wreck
Sketches.
Beautiful line art.
Just, oh my God, yes.
Oh yeah.
So
DC
really,
is
it's like,
with them.
yeah. Or conversely, to be fair, I've seen great colorists make line art look better than perhaps it is without it.
Also true. Yeah.
So Colin has really been an unsung hero in this. I absolutely love working with him. He's just fantastic, and he pays such attention to detail on all of this stuff. He's just been amazing. But then, having the conversation with Ron Chaney, Chain Entertainment, the question became, well, do we want to do this in black and white, or do we want to do this in color? Because of that sometimes that preconceived notion, well, if it's in black and white, it's not going to sell as well. I'm like, sir, two of the biggest selling independent comics of all time, Bone, but then more recently and more appropriate for this, The Walking Dead, and Sin City. But I said, past that, if we're bringing back London After Midnight, we need to bring it back the way people know it, which is looking like an old black and white film. And I said, here's some of the color samples from Colin Johnson on Joshua Ross's line art. He goes, we're in. Let's go. And here we are. I want to give a shout out to Dave Lentz, our letterer. It's hard to read a creator-owned comic in the indie space right now, in the creator-owned space that's not lettered by Dave Lentz. He's absolutely amazing, as well as our editor, Drina Joe. We call her the boss, but she's the one that kind of keeps all of us hooligans in line and makes sure everything's going along the way it should.
Dirk, with this relationship now with the Chaney estate, are we possibly going to see some other properties and other Kickstarters from you on this?
That is
huge. I mean, you're just up here at the top.
Yeah. Right, with like the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, we initially signed on for a 2-book deal. We did announce this last year. The second book we'll be doing, in fact, you talked about Josh Werner earlier. Mm-hmm. I'll just say it. I handed off to Josh Werner rather than do it myself, because he's one of the biggest Wolfman fans I know, the sequel to The Wolfman called The Curse of the Wolfman. So the next property we'll be doing with Chaney Entertainment will be Josh Werner, who wrote Winchester Mystery House, will be doing The Curse of the Wolfman. Also
just in time for the new film and everything else. Oh my God, this is almost
sometimes things, we want to get this done a lot sooner, but sometimes things work out the way they're supposed to if you let them, right?
Oh man, that's exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah, and to me too, it was like, Josh Werner was like blown away. He's like, why do you want me to do Wolfman? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I want London. That's the one I want. But I know you're the biggest Wolfman fan I know, next to possibly George Villegas, who set this deal to begin with. Shout out to George from Twisted, from Magic Ninja Entertainment. But to me, again, Josh Werner is one of the just most one of my favorite creators, one of the most
He's so genuine.
hardworking and just grinding guys out there.
Guy. He's such a
So
good guy.
him getting to adapt the screenplay that was never produced to the sequel to Curse of the Wolfman to graphic novel Next, that made my heart so full to be able to do that. Right. You know, I mean, it was like, to me, I got mine. Now you get yours.
Were you able to go to like the Cheney estate? Were you able to see any of like behind the scenes or some of like what they're holding back from the public? And
I've talked to Ron about it. I haven't done it yet,
Okay.
but I don't want to invite myself over. But I have seen virtually a lot of the stuff, and Ron, if you're watching this right now, you know, I mean, you Smurf brought it up. You know, I think it's only. I think this is it. You know that you know maybe we need a +1, right? We'll bring it in, but yeah, I've talked to Ron.
Plane ticket. I am there.
I've talked to Ron about what he's got, and some of the things he has. I'm just like what? And I said, I'm as a fan happy to hear this. My wallet is sad because I'm going to ask to buy some things from you, man. But yeah, I look forward to getting some opportunities to do some signings with Ron and stuff like that and set some things up once the book comes out. That's kind of like the next phase of things, is because again, Ron's such a cool dude and he's such a creative guy, and he has his own stuff that he does and things like that as well. And he does some conventions, mainly more out on the West Coast. But this is one of those things that I think where, as people discover that the Cheney legacy is still very alive and very fruitful, that's another big part of that for all of us as well.
Well, that was the question during the podcast. We're like, okay, so is Ron like the great grandson? Because I thought the Cheney line was gone. I mean, we're like, so is that the great grandson?
Not to put people out there, but I've talked to Ron's daughter. No, the Cheneys are going strong.
Yes. Viva la Cheney!
And it's funny because like all the grandchildren all know each other, of course, right? So I found out this whole like secondary network of all like the grandchildren of all the icons all you know exchange Christmas cards or whatever. So
Dirk, before we go, I wanted to jump back to the Kickstarter. And, you know, you mentioned earlier how much experience that you've had on Kickstarter, how long you've been doing Kickstarter. And our show that we do every Friday is about helping out Kickstarter creators by looking at their campaign from the point of view of consumers. And like, does it hook us? Is it giving us a reason to buy into it? Or is it just like, hey, I've got a campaign, come check it out. So what I'd like to ask you before we go is your advice, your words of wisdom to creators that are trying to get their books launched on Kickstarter, particularly new ones.
Here's what I tell people about crowdfunding. In order to crowdfund, you have to have a crowd. And some people look at me like I'm being a smartass about that, but I'm not, because that's just like the foundational element of it.
I always tell people it's not Field of Dreams, right?
No.
You have to bring your audience to it first.
Yes, and then Matt, you're exactly right. Because then the second part of that is you have to be able to activate your crowd, which is a whole nother thing. Statistically speaking, on average, maybe, and I think the number's even less than this, quite frankly. Some people have said maybe 10% of your social media footprint will support your crowdfunding endeavors.
Actually, I think it's a smaller one because we were doing research and crunching numbers on that, and it's actually, I think, a bit smaller, especially when you're
if you told me it was 5%, if that, I wouldn't even blink. And if you told me it was smaller, I wouldn't even blink. You know, you also really, really, really need to take time to draw up. And creatives hate this word, and they're gonna wilt and like Smurf. You're gonna like throw your book as you're a businessman. You'll get this, I think. But a lot of people like want to. This is when they tune out and they throw the book aside. They're taking notes. They get to this point, and they stop. You have to do a business plan, because I have known creators who have done $1 million campaigns and lost money. Okay, and I'm serious as a heart attack about this, because here's the thing: do you know what your production costs are? Have you factored in shipping? Have you factored in shipping to you And have you factored in shipping back out? Have you factored in international shipping? Have you factored in if the postage rates are going to go up? Have you factored in how much cardboard boxes cost? Right? Have you factored in bubble wrap? All this stuff adds up, and the profit margin is slim on average. Your average Kickstarter, if you do it right and you do it reasonably economically, your profit margin is probably 20%.
I was going to say, yeah.
20%. That's your profit. And when I say profit, I mean
deal. That's ideal.
That's
the comic god smiling on
you.
Yep.
The
blowing you across the seas. You're going to be lucky if you are not organized. 10%. 10%.
Yes. And profit. And that's profit. And then that means you got to pay your artists. You got to factor in your artist cost. You get then, I mean, are you going to print an overage, right? We could talk for an hour just about all this stuff. I mean, again, that's going to be right or wrong too. It's going to be about this stuff, right? But there's so many factors to go into this, and people, I love what you said, but they think it's Field of Dreams, and it's not. You will never work harder than you do on a Kickstarter, whether you're funded day 1 or whether you're day funded 30. You will never work harder when you're a Kickstarter. You're always thinking about what to do, and you're always it just consumes you, and you're hitting that refresh button, and then you get in like that second and third week slump, right?
Nobody likes me, everybody hates me.
Right, like, what am I doing? I'm tapped out and all this. It's over.
And you start to feel like you're just spamming everybody because you're just constantly working it.
Yeah,
it's like a full-time job, though.
It is, and it's exhausting, and you're always thinking about, what am I going to do? There was a creator years ago that said something about posting on social media that I've carried with me forever. He said, posting on social media is like throwing red paint in the ocean. For 5 minutes, everybody sees it. In 10 minutes, it's like it was never there.
We talk about mailing lists a lot on the show, too, that people don't use those because they think, I don't ever open my emails. But I can tell you from experience, like if you have 1,000 followers, like you said, it's going to be about 5% maybe that actually see it and go, like it and follow it. Mm-hmm. If you have 1,000 emails, more than 5% will open those emails, guaranteed. It's going to be closer to 30 or 40%.
But that being said, I love doing crowdfunding. I love doing Kickstarter. I love the opportunities this provides to people. There's just such wonderful opportunities to back the creators directly. And
Dirk, as we close into the end of this interview, unfortunately, we can't keep you all night because I know, dude, without cocktails, we would go all night. So, what is the best way to follow you? How do people keep track of you at home? How are they going to keep in touch as you expand across this horror landscape that you are now embarking on?
Yeah, I'm across all social media at Dirk Manning. Again, just look for the picture of the guy with the top hat and the scarf, the homage, if you will, to a certain famous horror movie icon. DirkManning.com is my website. It has my whole bibliography on there, my whole 2-decade-plus career, all the books I've written, my emails on there. My monthly newsletter comes directly from my email. So you're not getting any AI, you're not getting any spam. You're getting a once-a-month missive from me to you. And if you love comics and if you love horror, we should be friends. We should be talking and following each other and supporting each other's work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us at this conversation's been absolutely exciting and incredible. I'm so glad to have you on here. And if you guys haven't got it by now, be sure and go check out London After Midnight on the Kickstarter campaign. There's 25 days to go. They've already hit one stretch goal and they're on their way to the next. So go check it out. Right now you can get the leather-bound copy exclusive only on Kickstarter.
Yes, sir. LondonAfterMidnightComic.com.
Excellent. So give us a like, give us a share. But in the meantime, run fast, laugh hard, and always be kind. Good night.